Hi, John. How you doing?
Hi, doing well, thanks.
We're just getting set up here. A little bit of technical difficulties, but
I'm online.
okay, right on. Okay, let's get started then. If I can get a mover, please, to open up the meeting.
I'll
Moved
move it.
moved by Councillor Peter Kistemaker, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that we do call this regular meeting of council to order on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. And Councillor Stefanik, if you could do our Indigenous land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The Council of Corporation of Township of Hornepayne would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the land on which we gather here today is the Treaty 9, 1905-1906 territory, the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. As we work toward reconciliation, may we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stefanik. Moving on, we've added to our agenda the expression of condolence to Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and I will do that now. On behalf of the Municipal Council and the residents of Hornepayne, I would like to express my sincere condolences on the recent passing of Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Her strength and sense of duty are to be greatly commended. I would ask that we all take a moment of silence to recognize Her Majesty's 70+ years of dedicated service to her country and the Commonwealth. And if we could do that now, please. Thank you for taking the time to show the respect, and we'll continue on with our agenda. Oh, go ahead, Gail.
I just wanted to let you know, apparently the volume is not working for the streaming, so we'll have to just post the recording after.
Okay, okay.
Hopefully it'll pop up in the meantime, but it's just not working right at the moment.
Okay, but the people that are online with us currently, they can hear what's going on in the meeting. It's only that's happening on YouTube.
Yes, well, I believe so.
Okay, is there any way that we can put a note on YouTube saying that we'll post the recording later?
I would think that we can do that. I will speak to Jen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, carrying on, council, review and note of any changes to the agenda. So item 4.1 was added, a bylaw for a funding agreement for the tablet lending library. You've seen that under bylaws. The removal of item 14.4, draft routine disclosure activity decimation bylaw. Removed items 18, announcement heading, and modified item number 20.1, bylaw number 1958 confirmatory was bylaw number 1957, so the numbers changed there. And if council is okay with those amendments, we can approve the agenda as amended. If I can get a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Drago Stefanik, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that council does hereby approve the agenda as amended. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. Okay. And I'm just going to ask Miles and your colleague Brian, thank you for being in our meeting. Thank you for being here. Just until we get to the part of the your report, Fire Chief Miles, if I could ask you just to turn your cameras off until that moment. If you both could do that for me, please. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, council, we're on to item number 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, declaration of conflict of interest. And you can do that at any time throughout the meeting or when such a situation arises. I don't have any paperwork now, so I will continue on. Item 7.1 is the adoption of regular council meeting minutes from August the 9th. If I can get a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor John Paroff. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, August 9th, 2022 as distributed. Any comments or on those minutes? Sorry. Seeing none, I put it to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Item 7.2 is the adoption of minutes from the special meeting of council on August 30th, 2022, moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor John Paroff. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby adopt the minutes of the special meeting of council held on Tuesday, August 30th, 2022, as distributed. Any comments on those minutes? Okay, there being none, I put it to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And those are carried, none opposed. 7.3 is the minutes of the special town hall meeting, which we had up at the arena. Moved by Councillor Drago Stefanik, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby adopt the minutes of the special town hall meeting of council held on Tuesday, September 6, 2022, as distributed. Any further comments on those minutes or any comments? Okay, there being none, I put it to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. Item number 8, business arising from the minutes. There is none. So we move on. So tonight we did have a deputation. At our August 9th meeting, we asked if we could have the water and sewer billing and the report that we had done for us looked at so council could have the opportunity to ask for questions. And Melissa did invite Gary to our meeting. And if I can invite Gary now to turn on your camera and we'll have a discussion. Hi, Gary, nice to see you.
Nice to be here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and we can hear you great too, so that's good. And you're hearing us okay?
Perfect. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect, right on. So we were just, as you can see, I'm not sure, did you receive a copy of Melissa's report from August 9th?
Yes, I've got a copy. Thank you.
Okay, great. So you can see the concerns we're having is as we've implemented our new water and sewer rates, there has been some significant increases in some cases to some users, and which now has generated some more talk and backlog. So we wanted to address and see where we maybe could have lessened those implications for people and how we can still move forward with implementing our water and sewer rates. And council does have some questions for you as well. So
Okay.
do you have any comments first, Gary, by the report or anything you'd like to speak to first?
Only to recap that when we undertook the analysis on your behalf, we had used another northern municipality where they have meters, and we were able to analyze the different categories based on actual usage data. Now, that municipality uses meters, and in instances where you may have a building, but it has perhaps a business on the bottom, and then a residence on the, let's say, a floor above, that municipality would meter both the lower and meter the upper, so the residence and the business different. So that's what we were tracking was the type of setup that those municipalities have had. And therefore, if you got 2 meters, you would have 2 sets of bills. And we've used the residential based on the average usage. And then we've compared things such as commercial against the usage of the residential. So a commercial uses on average, and as I say, it's averaging all of those different commercial uses. They would use an extra 40% more water than a residence would. So that's the basis for the calculations. Obviously, these are policies, and we can talk about them, but at the end of the day, we're happy to discuss with you any questions and any refinements potentially you might want to make over time. So.
Okay, thank you for that recap, Gary. I appreciate it, and so does council. And I'm going to open up the floor now for council's question or comments on the report or any questions that you may have. Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, go ahead.
When you talk about a residential and a commercial and they're being metered, would there be a pipe? Would there be a pipe for going into the home, going upstairs to be metered, and a pipe going downstairs to be metered?
Through Madam Mayor, yes. When they set up those types of developments, they normally have a meter. So wherever it comes into the property and comes to the building, they would then spur off a connection specifically for the residential use and a separate one for the commercial use. And that's how they would meter the utilization of the water.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I just have a follow-up question to that. So then when they split off into those 2 meters, is it usually that each section could have they have their own shutoff valve then? Or would they be shutting off one service to the 2?
So there would be, you can shut it off to the property. And then to tell you the truth, I'm not as clear where they would locate the shutoff for the individual. I haven't investigated it that deeply, but I do know that there would be a shutoff for each of the individual buildings. Obviously, if the business is independent from the residents and the business basically goes vacant, they may wish to turn off the water to that individual portion of the building. So somewhere there's individual shutoff valves. Where, I'm not quite sure, and they may vary depending on the layout of the individual buildings.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for joining our council meeting, Mr. Demeter. Would you be able to please just turn off your camera for us? Thank you so much.
Cool.
And okay, any further questions from council? Councillor Drayo-Stefanik, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. We discussed one issue at the second last previous council meeting, and residential versus commercial, where I'll just give you a scenario without the names. The upstairs is residential and below is commercial. In my opinion, the commercial part probably uses less water than the residential upstairs. It is not a health spa. It's not a workout facility. It's basically hand washing. And I had a real difficult time personally, and I struggled this for last week or so, charging that individual commercial rate when they're using less water, in my opinion, than in the residential end of it. That really burdens me, actually.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a fair observation depending on the nature of the individual businesses. As I say, we used average categories. We looked at the properties. We tried to do some comparative analysis with this other municipality, and it is an average. If you have a meter, obviously that's when you're able to basically pay for the amount you use. Because we don't have the meters, then what we've tried to do is average the comparative types of properties. So there may be, maybe you have a one seat hair salon, and from our data, we may have pulled in hair salons, but maybe it's a 3-seater. We really weren't able to get that granular. So as I say, for those categories, we average them together in order to determine the relative relationship between a residence versus these commercial businesses.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Stanek?
I have a follow-up to that, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
In this specific case, I'll be more specific. It's not a hair salon. It's not a haircutting place. It's a business that has nothing to do with any major use of water. That's why I'm burdened by the cost for that individuals. It is not intent of this commercial business to be the high use or medium use of water. That's what I'm driving at.
And through you, Madam Mayor, I mean, you could stratify some of these categories a little bit finer. You could say, well, here's a little commercial. I'm just using words. You could have a little commercial versus a big commercial, and we could try and vary it. From what we've provided, maybe that would mean that the little commercial maybe drops down to being equal to a residence, but the big commercial goes from 1.4, like an extra 40%, maybe it goes up to 1.8. We can vary these depending on how you'd like to stratify them. But from what we've done thus far, let's say we took all of these combined buildings and you just said, well, a building's a building, we'll only charge one charge, that may drop the charge on those individual properties, but across all of the categories, we'll have to increase. We'll have to do a percentage increase because you still have to, at the end of the day, recoup the money to pay for the water system. So if we reduce in one area, then it goes up in another, which is fine. If council wished to do that, then we could refine the calculations and see how what the implications are.
Thank you very much.
May I say something, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Kissmaker.
I would completely agree with, all due respect, I completely agree with Councillor Drago-Stefanik. We all know everybody in Hornepayne and we know what's going on. And basically what we're doing is we're double dipping on the purse of the taxpayers. I really truly believe, as does Drago, we should be charging one rate, and if they're operating a business, absolutely charge the commercial rate. But to have the commercial rate as well as the residential rate, because if we had water meters, I would have no issue with it. But we don't have water meters, and we are being extremely unfair. And anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kissmaker. Any comments just to that, Gary?
As I said, if we're more than happy to revisit the calculations, as I say, if we drop it in one area, that's fine. That would translate into a reduction in revenue, but that means we have to add it on to the rest, the rest of the users, which is fine. But let's say if we eliminated, all the commercial. Okay, so there's 20 commercial. They're at 1.4 and just eliminated them. If we eliminated the 20 in totality, that would increase the rates on everybody else by 4%. So I'm just as an order of magnitude. And as I say, any direction you'd like to give us, we're more than happy to revisit those calculations and refine them a little bit. But if we reduce in one area, they go up in another, which once again is fine as well. But those would be the implications. Otherwise, you would have a net revenue loss that has to be made up somewhere.
Okay, thank you for that. I do have a question, because the thing I think that was shocking for me when I realized was that in the case of, and we can speak about this publicly because they did complain publicly about their water, in this case of the commercial with the upstairs residential, was my understanding was that their rate doubled in a quarter because they had been only on residential previous to that. So my first question is, and maybe it's our staff that would answer that to ensure that's proper in my mind, because that to me is significant, that to increase the rate, to double it and a half. Like, there has to be an implementation plan to that. And maybe we have to look at putting meters in our businesses, that it becomes part of the plan of installing meters and having some sort of system to make it fair across the board. Like, this isn't going to go away overnight, but at the same time, and what's the definition? I liked what you had said, Gary, about a smaller business, bigger business. What's the definition of a small business? One sink with a washroom that only the staff uses, and then a bigger business has a public washroom, or like, there's so many variables that it could get busy. But without a metering system, you have to have some sort of data that you're making these choices by.
Yeah, absolutely, Madam Mayor. And that's where I say we did go and attempt, based on actual data for another municipality, to try and categorize and give you relationships. But in between each individual, as I say, we averaged in between one, it may go, they may be a higher use, another one may be a lower use. Obviously, equity is best defined by metering, but there is a cost to put in all those meters. So there's an added cost.
Yeah. And the other question too, then, that I follow up is just identifying who our business owners are and what they have, because my concern is that you have, say, a small micro business that has a home, they make their income off that, a good income. So technically they're using water, like the same taps are using for residential, but they are using for their business.
So they may be a high residential user, in that particular case, because they've got the combined use. So that would suggest potentially they should pay a little bit more than just a normal residence. But we get into many different variations. Gee, this particular house has a family of 4. This particular house is only two retirees. Once again, we've used an average. So any way that we stratified any calculation, you could have an observation that we're charging too much or too little. And that's why generally municipalities move towards meters in order to define equity. But once again, there's a cost associated with putting all those meters in. So
in your is there any other questions from council before I ask another question? And Councillor Paroff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to speak up and kind of support my fellow councillors in that sending an individual 2 different bills at 2.5% of a house is kind of shocking. It's kind of insulting to the small business owner. I have a small business, and if I use a toilet 5 times a day, that's stretching it, right? Why am I paying 1.5 to 1.4% for a commercial rate for that if it's in my own home? That's 2.4%, I should say. We do have to work out something that's fair for the businesses that we have, not for the businesses of another community. So we have to look at it pretty strongly there, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crowe. So,
Well, Council,
Councillor Baker, go ahead.
sorry.
Blunt.
I was going to suggest, if council wishes, we can work with staff to make some refinements and come back with a few different options. I mean, once again, this is your policy. What we attempted to do is to utilize data from other municipalities, which is fair. And every municipality is unique and every business is unique. But we could come back with some options, and it would be relatively straightforward for us to, we've got the data, so it'd be relatively straightforward for us to refine some calculations with each of those options and come back to you. If council have some suggestions, I think that would be good to pass on through either Gail or Melissa, and we can provide you with the implications of those options. Once again, keep in mind that if we anything that we rejig, if we reduce in one category, other categories have to raise a little bit in order to balance it out. But we can present that to you, and then you'll have all the information to make your decision.
Okay, thank you for that. I see Councillor Belinda Kistemaker had a question. Go ahead, Belinda.
I'm fine. He kind of answered my question. Thank you, Gary. Basically, we just want this to be fair and consistent and work right. So if I'm game for you to keep looking into this for us and come up with the right answer, because I believe we have to. This is one issue in our town that's very it's talked about all the time.
So if I could, through you, Madam Mayor, is the issue thus far only where we have combined residents with a some type of commercial activity in it?
I think we have had some issues too with the.
Or are there other
businesses
things that we might as well understand any concerns, so then we can come back with
Go ahead, Gail.
sorry, I missed the comment.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Melissa, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, there is some other concerns in regards to the detached bays and the additional bays. So we do have a few properties that have 5, 4, 3 bays. So we charge one, we'll charge the commercial and then the first bay, and then any additional bays at the 0.7, like you recommended in the study. So there have been some concerns that were raised in regards to those as well.
And that's fine. We can, what we'd like to just hear is any other concerns through staff, even after we finish up tonight. And we will work with staff to come back with some different options that allow council to, pick an option or pick an amalgam of a couple of options, and we can move ahead from there.
Okay, Gary, I think council is in agreement with that. I can get some consensus on council. Okay, and yeah, I think part of the issue, is we all support the report that was done. We want to move our municipality so that it's more fair across the board. But I think there's just these key little areas, not little, they're magnified for the poor people that are getting the bills, but so that that effect is minimized. And if at the very most there's an option that shows us where we can incorporate an implementation plan, and understanding the significant changes that would be seen I think that was something that I personally missed through this process was, and that's no fault of the staff or the report. This is brand new for us all to try and implement something new like this. Is the question was, what's the difference between then what we were doing and now in actual dollars, like in the impact of the actual end user, right? And it might have, had that question been asked, we might have seen it more readily before we went too far into creating our policy, which is really on a whole is well done, because the staff has what they need to implement. But I do think we have to do some changes so that people, the end user isn't, well, in this case, in some cases, it's overwhelming, I'm sure.
That's fair. As I say, Madam Mayor, we're more than happy to we'll discuss with staff, come back with a couple of options, and more than happy to work with you to find a solution that you find a good balance in between all the different users and how you would define equity.
Okay, thank you for that, Gary. And Gail and Eileen, is there anything else that you need right now from this meeting to move forward? And
No, I think we're good to go ahead and meet Gary and come up with some options. Oh, Melissa?
oh, go ahead, Melissa.
I'm just looking for some direction from council where we go from here, since we've already issued the second and third quarter billing, and if there's going to be a structure change for 2022, how do you want us to approach that?
Do you have a suggestion on that, Melissa? Or Gary, do you have a suggestion? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm kind of assuming from there's going to be a whole structure change, so the whole the residential rate is going to be increased significantly. Like, I'm just predicting that second and third. So then if there's any increases, I'm seeing the only way to level that out is do the increase in the fourth quarter and the reductions in the fourth quarter to even it out for the annual amount.
Okay, Gary, did you have any comments to that?
No, I think you know, that would be the appropriate time to make the adjustment. Is in the obviously some people get rebates or reductions. Other people will get a slightly additional amount added to their bill. So once again, we can answer that question once we come up with a couple of different options. We can also give you the impacts and suggested ways of dealing with them on the final bill.
Okay, so then to reiterate what Melissa and what you have just said then, so people would just continue, you pay your bill, and if there is a reduction, that will be adjusted in the fourth quarter billing. And if there's an increase, it'll be adjusted in that fourth quarter. If it's, if there's two, we could look at that again once we know what we're dealing with, because I wouldn't want to give too much of an increase in one quarter of a bill right at Christmas time too.
Yeah. That could be an option. Once we have through you, Madam Mayor, once we have can see the individual impacts, obviously that'll be the easiest to then suggest how we deal with it. I mean, if somebody's bill was to go up a couple $100, you'd obviously want to focus in on that and maybe stage it over a couple of payments. First quarter, last quarter, and first quarter. We'd have to look at the cash flow and a number of different things. So I think if you give us an opportunity to look at a couple of options, see what the impacts are in individual customers, and then give you implementation solutions, I think that would be what I would perceive you're looking for from us.
Yes, definitely. Okay. So is that I think that's enough direction from all around, and I thank you again for coming back And first of all, doing the report, Gary, and working with us and being patient as we're working through to ensure that we're giving the best service that we possibly can afford and give to our residents here in Hornepayne. So I look forward to meeting with you again, and all of council. I say thank you for coming on such short notice as well to our meeting.
My pleasure, as always.
Okay, have a great night.
Thank you. All the best.
Okay. Oh, so carrying on, we have the manager's report. If I can get a mover, seconder, please, for the manager's reports. Moved by Councillor John Paroff, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby acknowledge receipt of the manager's reports provided at the regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. And our first report is from Eileen Singh. And would you like to speak to your report before we open for questions or comments, Eileen?
No, I don't have anything to add to my report, but I can take any questions that anyone might have.
Okay, thank you. So I open up the floor for council for questions for this Deputy Chief Administrative Clerk Officer report. Just while council's looking at that, I was noticing in the reports about council's email addresses, and I was wondering if I could possibly get mine done earlier, just because I am traveling to a few events right after. And I'd like that to start with that.
I don't see why not. We can find out, but I can definitely get back to you about that mayor report.
Great. And just to follow up to that question, I guess we will have forms to fill out of what we like on our new business cards, because I'm down to one, I'll be down to one cell phone number, just one phone number.
I believe an email might have been sent out, but again, I can check into that and find a form.
Okay. Thank you. Any other further questions? I do have another question about the canteen. So it says it's been reposted for a third time. When does that posting close?
Page 30th, I think.
I believe it's September 30th.
Okay.
Sorry, and it's for a November 1st start.
Thank you. And I also see in the report that we have Louis Helps as the new municipal affairs contact in Sudbury. Have we ever met or know this person from another? Is it, first of all, is it a man or a woman?
It's a man, and he actually gave us a call, I believe, on Friday, and he sounds really nice, and
It's brand new.
yeah, he's brand new in his role.
Okay.
Kind of like me.
Just out of university.
Yeah, and he's actually just out of university, so.
Has a master's in rural development. So I said,
okay.
oh, well, that might be good for us. Instead
Okay.
of put you on speed dial.
Okay. And the other question, this came up today, just council, about the Ministry of Transportation, just due to some backlog at their end about the speed limit. This came up at our town hall meeting. I'm wondering if we do not one of those speed monitoring digital signs looked at. I'm just getting concerned. This has been an ongoing concern for our community, and I'm not sure what those units price. I think, Gail, you had mentioned in our policing meeting that they are movable. We could have a movable unit.
As far as I know, Dwayne, are you able to speak to that a little bit? I know we had talked about that a few months ago as a possible solution, and I'm not sure if you got any pricing or.
No, I have not got pricing, but that system we're looking at for cameras, there's also a sensor to go on the poles that does the same thing too. It doesn't show people, but it monitors speeds going through town. But I can look through Owl Light to find a price on the other one.
Yeah, because the ones that would be good for knowing what people are doing, but it wouldn't show the driver, right? The ones that you're talking about, whereas the ones we're talking about are the ones you see flashing at you when you come into the community or whatever on a street.
I will get pricing.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I think just for our due diligence, as it came up several times now through myself, Councillor Stefanik, also different residents, and then again at our town hall. And although we are trying to make some action happen, if it's not too costly, that might be a solution that they're seeing right in the town. And I do think it would minimize the speed significantly. So thank you, Dwayne. That was all my questions. Any other further questions from council? Okay, moving on then. Client Service Manager Treasurer's Report. Did Melissa stay on?
No, I don't think she's on anymore.
No, she was just on for that one part. Okay, well, if we have any questions, they can just be directed through yourself, Gail, or Eileen.
Yep.
So any questions for the Treasurer's Report? Okay, I'm not seeing any. The one question I did have, and it's not, you know that I'm an advocate of training, totally am, but I'm wondering from the background what is our goal now that when we go to different training, and I say this because I know Gail in the background, you've heard me talk about switching up what I'm doing this next term to try and bring more investment to the community. I'm wondering, do we have training outputs like goals that we're trying to meet with our training? Or do we see something within the conference or that sort of thing that hits a target? That's why they're going to those training sessions?
Yeah, it's basically we look at what the agendas are, and if there's something that's, you know, pertinent to us or going to be useful information for us, that's usually what we base it on. And some you look at and, you know, there's 2 out of 5 that might be helpful, well, then you don't go, sort of thing. So it's more or less just, you know, what are we having issues with, what's up and coming, and what are we going to need to know about? So that's kind of how we look at it.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question. Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on then to Public Works Manager. Dwayne, would you like to speak to your report before I open up for questions or comments?
Sure, I got a couple of things to add, just happened lately. We have another water leak on Herbert and 2nd Street in the corner again. And also we had a couple of power fluctuations last week, Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, we lost 1 phase, and then again, we lost another phase on Friday, and it fried one of the cards on our PAPIs. So we had another card that was supposed to be here, but hasn't been shipped yet. It was in back order. And so we're actually don't have the spare card. They managed to find us one today in Ohio, and it's supposed to be shipped up here ASAP to get it into the thing. So right now our PAPI lights aren't working. The runway lights are working. It's just the PAPIs, which are basically the elevation lights coming in. When the plane comes in, it sees white or red. If it's red, it's too low. If it's white, it's coming in the right angle. So I'll have more of an update when I find out exactly where the part is and how quick it's going to get here. But I'm hoping this week it'll be here.
Okay, so are pilots equipped to handle that, to land without them? like, our runway doesn't shut down or anything? Sorry, you just got me right unnerved here.
No, they still can land. There is a NOTAM, so they know that they aren't working when they're coming in. They have to land by basically visual landing on the runway.
Okay.
There is a NOTAM, and I put the NOTAM out for 3 months just in case. It was an overkill for sure, but I wanted to make sure I find this card. And I've ordered a second card on top of that to make sure we have a spare on hand.
Okay, and is there any indication of why, or you might have said this, but why it was faulty or what happened?
We figure the power spikes took it out.
The power spike.
We had two power interruptions on 2 days in a row on both. There's 3 phases coming out of the airport, and we lost 2 phases, 1 phase differently each day.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on top of that, Dwayne.
No problem.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm open for questions on anything else.
Okay. I open up the floor for questions or comments for Dwayne. Well, I just want to congratulate you, Dwayne, on the Public Works team for getting that first house down. I was going to go and take a run tonight, and I didn't. I ran out of time before the meeting to go and check it out. But I applaud you. That's a big undertaking to do the training and to learn how to, use the excavator and all of that. And I'm glad to see it's going to go out and work with the sludge beds as well. So hats off to you and your team, Dwayne.
Thank you.
Yes, and I do want to say I do like the barricades too at the Pavilion Park. I think it does add a sense of structure there. So are we keeping those, or is that only while they're working here?
No, they're permanent.
They're permanent? Okay. Okay, if there's no further comments on that, we'll move on. Thank you, Dwayne.
You're welcome.
We have the Economic Development Officer's report. And Stacy, would you like to speak to your report before I open up for questions or comments?
No, but if you have any questions, I'm sure to answer them.
Okay. I have to ask you, are you sitting outside? Is that nice outside?
I am sitting on my deck.
That is so great. I have to do a shout out, guys. The weather in Ottawa is like 8 degrees or something. Woohoo, Hornepayne. Relocate north. Anyway, okay. So I open up the floor for questions or comments to our Economic Development Officer. Go ahead, Councillor Stefanik.
Yeah, thank you. What's your final strategy before the snow flies? I have a feeling it's going to fly pretty soon, and it's a month's time to wrap up the park and sort of put a hibernation with all the equipment that you're going to be arriving still and stuff. What's your plan for that, please? Thank you.
So we're hoping to get the fence in the next week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on staff and contractors, and the LED lights as well, and potentially the walking path. We're still kind of waiting on the concrete for the outdoor fitness equipment. We like to do that at the same time the hotel is doing the foundation. So we're still trying to coordinate that. The outdoor washroom will be pushed to next spring, summer, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. And the equipment for the washroom we're going to store that somewhere, or is it able to be stored outside?
It's able to be stored outside, but we haven't actually decided what we're going to do with it yet.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions from council? Okay, the only one that I have is about going after for more funds for your position. And I just always get antsy when I see October 31st of 2022, it's all wrapped up. So where are we on that? I wasn't sure which application it was.
So we have we've already been approved for the phase 1, and the phase 2 application should go in this week. And so far we have budgeted for my wages till December 31st.
Okay, okay. Phew. Oh. Okay, well, that's all my questions. Thank you. Okay, have a great night, Stacy. Okay, and I welcome Fire Chief Miles Wallingford and Brian Mackey, Fire Protection Advisor, to our meeting.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, do you have any comments or questions that you, or things you'd like to add to your report before I open it up for question or comment?
I don't think so. I'd like to apologize to council for waiting so long to come up with a report. It's been quite a while, 14 months, I think, and so you got a lot of information there. There's been a lot of changes in the fire service in the past 6 or 8 months. It's caused a lot of stress, heartache, and flux within the services, but the fire marshal's office is really stepping up to the plate and changing as the, I guess, as the chiefs are screaming. I don't know, Brian can comment to that a bit more, but there is a lot going on right now. With that being said, Marathon and Geraldton and nearby communities are really stepping up their training, and they're reaching out to us, and we've been able to go to Geraldton 3 times in the past 2 months for training, and that's a big deal. In the past, we'd have to go to Gravenhurst, and nobody would go. It was too far, too much time off work. Geraldton's nice and close. Some training days were just single days, so we'd drive down 3 hours, do a 6, 7, 8 hour training day, and drive home the same day. So I don't know, Marathon, Manitowoc are stepping up to the plate, and they're close by, so we're looking forward to spending time with these communities.
That's interesting, and they have the same challenges that we would have. So when you're training together, it's similar, I would imagine.
Yeah. So Geraldton, of course, is Greenstone, right? They're 1,200-1,300 people. Long Black's 1,200-1,300. They've got Nakina, Beardmore, and I think Karamat. They cover Karamat. So it's about 4,800 people total in 5 departments, and they have a lot of training. They pull a few guys from each department. There's usually a few spare spots, and they've been offering it to us and Manitowoc and anybody that's willing to take it. So we've really been blessed to have those opportunities lately.
Okay, well, I did find that in your report. I found it actually hopeful with all the changes that have occurred.
Yeah.
I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is actually, it sounds hopeful. Like, especially when you were mentioning, and you just mentioned again verbally, that some of these training that they've been able to access, we wouldn't have had it.
No.
Okay.
Well, in the past, we had to travel a long ways for a lot of this training, and I'm new, right? Like, I've been here for 27 years, but most of my training has been hands-on and learning on our own without following a lot of guidelines. Now we're moving into accepting and following NFPA guidelines, so we have to kind of relearn the textbook sort of thing, right? So it's helpful to sit down with other people that are also relearning and teaching the textbook.
I do have any other questions from council before I ask another question? I have a question about I gotta take my note off here. It says in your report that the Ontario Fire Marshal's office has started hiring more instructors, advisors, and they really recently announced a $750,000 grant available over the next 3 years. Do we know any more information about that? And do you think we would be able to tap into any of those funds?
Absolutely. I think we can get a little bit. In the past, last year, I believe, was the first time they ever offered grants. They offered $5 million for training grants. We received $4,800 of that. It was dedicated so much per community population. I'm not sure how it was done, but we just received notice we were getting $4,800, fill out the forms, that's it. Now it's a bit different. It's $400,000 the first year, $250,000 the second year, $150,000 the third year, something like that, and it goes to people who need training. So we fill out the forms, this is what we need for training, and they go on a need by need basis, I guess. So, I mean, if we have needs, we could submit and we'll receive it likely before somebody like Toronto or Timmins or Sudbury gobbles up all the funds, right? They have their own budget. They don't need extra for the new laws. They've been doing this for a while. So I think it's going to be helpful for the little guy. I don't know how much we'll get. We'll apply for the world and see what happens, I guess.
Okay, great. Yeah, and that 750,000, is that, so that's one lump sum, and is that just for Northern Ontario? Or is there, how many sums are there?
Brian will help you with that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity to come forward. And thanks, Miles, for inviting me. My name is Brian Mackey, and I'm the Fire Protection Advisor for Algoma, which covers from the town of Spanish to White River and Hornepayne to the north. So I've got a bit of an area. I'm trying to acclimatize myself to the needs and wants of everyone. Unfortunately, we have what we call NFPP, which is the Northern Fire Protection Program. Those are unorganized Ontario fire departments that require more of our assistance sometimes than municipalities or local towns. So I am available. I put in my email. Miles has all my contact information. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, please reach out. I'm available pretty well all the time. The grant that Miles mentioned is through the Fire Marshal's Fire Safety Council. It's not actually from the OFM. It's his Fire Safety Council, which is like a third arm of the Fire Marshal. It's a non-profit organization. They looked in their bank account and noticed that they had a large amount of funds, and they put this up to help individual fire departments with training material. So it's not actually for training, it's for the materials required to train. So if you need videos, some of the new books, testing material, stuff like that, it's available. And all the fire departments can apply, and as Miles said, it's on a needs basis, so they'll look at the application and then judge accordingly. And I know one of the concerns that was brought up before was, hey, you know what, Toronto's going to step in and they're going to gobble it all up and we'll have nothing left. And that's not the case. Like I said, they're looking at needs. Toronto doesn't need any more money to do their training. They're pretty well equipped to do their own. It's fire departments like Hornepayne, White River, Hearst to the north. Those are the ones that need the help. So,
is there opportunity, Brian, with that funding, if there was a joint application made between and a series of training that was done for 3 or 4 of our municipalities? Just, we have so within the Algoma, all of our communities at the Northeast Superiors Mayor's Group are all in Algoma. So that's Chapleau, Wawa, Duberville, White River, Manitouwadge, and Hornepayne.
Yep.
So I'm just, if that's the weight of the application is heavier, I would definitely be in support of that. And Miles, you can reach out to us any way to help you with that, write a letter, however, whatever you need for application.
Okay.
And I'm not sure about applying in a group. I will have to look into that because, like I said, it's not part of the OFM's offering. It's the Fire Safety Council. There is a contact. His name is Jamie Kovacs, and his name and phone number and email is in the email that was sent to Miles.
Okay, great. Okay, is there any further questions for our fire chief? Okay, I am looking forward, Miles, to the building renovations quote and moving forward with either that or moving forward with planning for a different building. I like that you're forward thinking and keeping your guys and gals that are at the fire department safe. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed that we're still at 20 members, even though we've had 15 move away, and you're still attracting people. That's applaudable.
We seem to have a group of probably half of us, probably 10 of us or so, that are pretty very faithful, and the other 10 are coming and going at a very high rate of speed. But we're building that faithful base, right? So we got quite a few people are qualified, and in the qualifications, we're looking forward to increasing their qualifications, and then some people get in there and they get hooked and they move over to the other side of the tent there. Hopefully those numbers increase of the more faithful ones that stick around. So.
Okay. Okay, and do you have any comments or questions for council at this point, Miles, before I wrap up this section of our meeting?
There's a few things that I wanted to talk about. I guess this training budget increased a little bit. I don't know how much I need. I'm not good with budgets. I get phone calls and invitations, and I'd like to be able to just send people wherever. So can we talk about training budget? Can we increase that a bit? One of the things I'd like. I'd like to be able to train for interior, exterior, and AutoX. I'd like, I guess, the blessing to continue in that direction. It's a lot of work to train for interior, but it's not much extra to go for exterior. And then again, AutoX isn't much more training after that, right? So once we get the NFPA firefighter 1 and 2 in there and get people qualified under that, then it's not a far stretch to continue training for other things. So I'd like to go in that direction, put that out there for people, and make sure that I can continue in that direction. That's all.
Well, definitely. In this council, we've definitely supported training, not only for council, but staff. And you have the support of us. What we need is just the background information. I believe Melissa will be doing a call to the departments for their budget, for her budget requirements, probably in November, I'm imagining, because we're going to have our first delegations near the end of November, beginning of December, our first look at it. So you want to be in touch with Melissa, Miles, and even if it's past training allotments that you see that when you talk to your colleagues, anything that gives to substantiate your claim of what you need for training and ultimately where it's going to take you, right? Like where it's going, so that it's that we're not just doing a training that really doesn't have any connection. But I haven't heard that at all tonight. Like there's definitely a clear path. So that would be the next steps for budget and getting that training, and that we look at and to ensure that the budgeting for any of the upgrades and that to the building, and then long-term financial planning, you can talk with Melissa about that. We're not quite at that stage yet, but that is coming. Did you want to add anything, Gail, to that, or Eileen?
No, I think that's perfect. And Miles and I have chatted a few times about getting ahead and getting this stuff into the budget for budget discussion time, and getting some costs and quotes and pricing that is realistic, that council can actually make decisions on. So I think we're on a good path, Miles, and I think you've got a really good vision for what you want the department to be. So I'm really impressed with that. Eileen?
Nope, I don't have anything to add either.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Miles.
The government come out with a payment process for northern municipalities who allow their fire services to go outside the municipality. So in the past, we were paid about $500 per truck for highway calls if dispatch called, and now they're offering that for everywhere in unincorporated I'm not sure how it works, but basically everywhere. We can go to cottages now, bush roads, back roads, wherever. We can go to all these places and be paid approximate same thing, $500 an hour per truck. So I'd like permission to be able to go to these places or change that with 911 and be called out of the community limits.
Okay, I'm thinking on that note, Miles, we're going to need more information on that. It's not to hinder the process, but where you would like to go, the circumference to the municipality, because I think in the past, and I'm only going off memory here, please correct me if I'm wrong, Gail, or Councillor Stefanik, if you can remember, is that we didn't want to leave, we didn't want to neglect or jeopardize the safety of the community by having the fire truck too far away. But I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. There was something to that effect, and that was a few years ago. I think it was the first year I was on council, we had those discussions when we first did our fire agreement, I think with the mill maybe.
Yeah, I think just, I don't know if there was a perimeter set, but I think it was just to make sure that the community is not left unprotected. There was a concern with that.
Right now, we don't have anything, I can't find anything in writing, but from my recollection and being told by the previous chief was township limits. So Cree Lake, I think up to Cree Lake, but not including the cottages. First Government only. Bear Lake, only 1 or 2 cottages on Bear Lake. And then
okay. I'm going to go to a couple comments. Councillor Kissmaker Belinda, go ahead.
Just listening to what you're saying, Miles, if you're able to go to cottages and stuff, that might help people with their insurance policies. So that's a bonus.
Right now, the government is offering to pay for us to go. In the past, the municipality also cost. Now the government's offering to pay for it, for the calls, I guess. As far as cottagers and their insurance, I don't know. We get generally about 7 to 9 calls a year. We don't have a lot going on, so I guess to me, broadening our area would not be much of a risk. And I think we've lost 2 garages in 5 years, so our fire calls are certainly low. I'd like to keep them that way, but I'd also like to go a bit further. So I'll get some information, or I'll put a package together and go to council, I guess, in the near future.
Yes, that would definitely be the direction, is the cost that would be covered. Because I know one of the discussions that'll come up at this council table, it's come up before about areas outside the municipality that we maintain or spend money on, and that's the taxpayer's dollar doing that. So we need to ensure that it's covered, but I know for myself, I'm a supporter of adding protection, as long as, like we had said, we're not hindering our own township itself, like the municipality, the center. But yeah, so we need to know the calls you figure per year, Miles, where the location of this vicinity would be, and then the costs that are covered. And if you think it would be completely recoverable, that would be a huge selling point.
Okay, thank you for your time.
And I'll pass over to Gail. She might have more comments for you or for us.
I actually have a question, or it's kind of a comment, but I was wondering, Brian, if you could answer this. Is that something that would be outlined in a establishing and regulating bylaw? Do you know? Because that's where your levels of service are outlined. Would that be something that would go in that bylaw? Because I know we're going to be reviewing ours.
Oh, definitely, yes. It would have to be part of your bylaw just to cover your municipality. But once you develop that, we can review it and make sure that that all the wording's right and that it meets what you need and what the outer areas need. The only limitations to that is if you have an unorganized area that already has what I call an FPP department or an agreement with another fire department, then you wouldn't be able to access the funds. But if it's wide open territory that nobody covers, then you're more than willing to take it.
All right, and maybe you've talked about this, Miles, with Brian or with somebody else to see if there's any current or recent samples of establishing and regulating bylaws for fire departments, because ours is, as you know, very old and very minimal.
If
Yeah,
I could,
go ahead.
sorry, if I could jump, I know right now with the new firefighter certification that's come into play, that a lot of communities are going back and re-examining their ENR bylaws because of the wording in the level of service provided. And Miles touched on it earlier about training for interior tack, for exterior tack, and auto extrication. When you're looking specifically at exterior and interior tack, you have to be very, very careful what you put in your bylaw, the level of service you're going to provide. Look at your current capabilities and what you can do now, and then work towards building that. You can always add on, but if you put in there full interior rescue and you can't meet that capability and something happens, then you leave yourself open for litigation, and you don't want to put yourself in that position. So you can always add as you progress, but if you put it to the top and something happens that you don't meet that bar, then trouble could come looking for you.
Well, thank you. That's very, very good to know. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Miles, for your report and for coming to council to present tonight and for inviting Brian Mackey along. This has been great. Thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, Madam Mayor, councillors. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, so we've gone through all of the manager's reports. I'll put the acknowledge receipt of manager's reports to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Okay, so we're going to move on to action items, and when we're through action items, we will take a short break. So once we get through these. So the first one is 11.1. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Drago-Stefanik, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that council does hereby acknowledge receipt of the 21.0.14 Airfield Rehabilitation Project Progress Report number 07 for Hornepayne Municipal Airport as prepared by Alex Muir, AVIA NG. Is there any comments on the report? No, great photographs again. It looks great. I put that to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. If anyone watches our meetings and does consulting work, they're going to know that Mayor Fort likes photos. Okay, moving on, we had a meeting. It was requested by the principal of the Hornepayne Elementary and Secondary School, and you can see the letter there regarding that. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by?
I'll move it.
Councillor Peter Kistemaker, second by Councillor John Paroff. Whereas on September 1st, 2022, subsequent to a meeting with Township representatives, Council received correspondence from Leslie Kennedy, principal of Hornepayne Elementary and Secondary School, requesting assistance and support from the Township with recruiting and retaining qualified trained professionals, specifically teachers within the community. And whereas at the meeting with Ms. Kennedy, a discussion ensued about the general worsening of local recruitment and retention issues in other sectors, as well as in the education field, example the medical field. And whereas to build a successful community is imperative that Hornepayne be able to attract and retain a variety of professionals. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby support the establishment of a community recruitment retention team for Hornepayne, who will be ambassadors of our community, identify gaps, and develop a plan to attract professionals to our community, professionals who will want to make Hornepayne their home. Be it further resolved that the Township will work with Ms. Kennedy to reaching out to other entities who may be interested in joining this team to set up an initial meeting. Any questions or further comment on the motion? Gail, did you want to speak to this motion before I put it to a vote?
Sure, just briefly, just to say that we know there's shortages in education. We know there's shortages in the medical profession. Sitting on the CCG meetings the last couple of years, that's come to light more than ever. It's a constant struggle. And then meeting with the OPP today as well. You know, it's always, I don't know if a struggle is the right word, because I think it's a little bit different of a situation in that case, but it is an issue that I think we'd be more effective if we work together to sell this to, you know, people and showing the various opportunities that are available in our community, and going out to different, I don't know if they would be called trade shows or job recruitment fairs or something like that, and actually having a good solid presentation. So I think this could be really good for our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll put that to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. And 11.3 is the Hornepayne Public Library Trunk or Treat. It's coming to that time. Moved by Councillor Drago Stefanik, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby authorize Darnell Hill, CEO of the Hornepayne Public Library, to hold Trunk or Treat event on October 31st, 2022 from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. at the Pavilion Park, and to have use of tables and chairs free of charge. Be it further resolved that Front Street between 4th and 5th Avenues will be closed between 3:30 and 6 p.m. to help ensure the safety of participants and to provide better accessibility, and that since this is a municipal event, the event will be covered under the municipal liability insurance policy. Be it finally resolved that Township staff, council, and/or fire department will participate if available. Any further comments or question on the motion? Okay, I expect everybody to be dressed up. Those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Moving on to 11.4, we have Hornepayne Public Library Ontario Culture Days. Moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor John Paroff. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby authorize Darnell Hill, CEO, Hornepayne Public Library, to hold Ontario Culture Days Community Artist Rock Garden event, in which residents may participate in painting rocks at the Pavilion on October 6, 2022 from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, and October 13th, 2022 from 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Be it further resolved that Council does hereby authorize the use of the Pavilion to display the completed rock garden. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay, there being none, I put it to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. 11.5 is the federal electoral boundaries, which we've had discussion at our town hall meeting. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Drago Stefanik, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Whereas the Electoral Boundaries Commission has proposed the elimination of one of the electoral districts in Northern Ontario and a redistribution of remaining electoral districts, and whereas the proposed to diminish Northern Ontario's voice in Parliament would erode the ability to effectively represent diverse small and rural communities, and whereas the reduction will have a detrimental effect on participatory democracy and regional development as the issues in Northern Ontario are significantly different than the issues facing the urban South, and whereas there is potential for the province of Ontario to adopt the federal electoral boundaries to establish provincial electoral boundaries, which would repeat the negative effects. Oh, my apologies. which would repeat the negative effects on the provincial representation for people and communities of Northern Ontario. And whereas the Federal Boundaries Commission proposal to cut representation in the North is contrary to the 2017 electoral boundary changes for Ontario that recognize the need to add 2 seats to ensure fair participation for Northern residents, and whereas many of the existing districts in Northern Ontario are already larger than many European countries, a situation that will only be worsened by the addition of massively new regions to service. And whereas the proposed new super districts will force municipalities to compete for a limited amount of riding funding, which will further exacerbate inequities in the North. And whereas Northern Ontario's population per riding is already much higher than many other rural and isolated regions in Canada's North. And whereas the courts have ruled that representation in Canada's democracy is not based merely on population, but on regions of interest and the right of citizens to engage with their elected representatives. And whereas any changes to electoral boundaries should be based on the principles of maintaining communities of interest within boundaries that are equitable in terms of population and geography. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne calls the Federal Electoral Boundaries Commission to withdraw the proposal to eliminate a federal riding in Northern Ontario. Be it further resolved that the Township of Hornepayne petition the federal government to introduce legislation that would provide for a minimum number of guaranteed districts for Northern Ontario to protect the North and to ensure that the voices of Northern and rural communities are heard. Be it finally resolved, a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, FNOM, the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, NOMA, the North Superior Regional Mayors Group, and Carol Hughes, MP, Algoma, Manitoulin, and Kapuskasing. Any comment on the motion? Okay, there being none, I put it to a vote. Those in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Gail.
I just wanted to bring to your attention, I'm sorry I don't have the one up, but there is an opportunity to provide written comment individually or as a group until September the, oh goodness, 25th. It's not very long from now. 27th, sorry, let me just pull that up.
It's at the beginning.
The first one?
Yes, I think so.
No, that's not that one.
Or it might be this one.
This
That
one?
25th.
Okay, yes, how to participate. If you wish to make a representation at a hearing, you must complete a public hearing participation form. The Commission has set September 25th as the date by which the public participation hearing form is to be filed. A submission may be made in writing as an alternative to appearing at an in-person or virtual hearing, and should you wish to send comments and feedback to the Commission without attending a public hearing, you can do so by mail or email or by using the interactive mapping tool. So that is the third attachment, Ontario redistribution timeline. So I would encourage people to
You know what I'm thinking, Gail, in this, just before I put it to a vote here, Council, is why don't we set up a Facebook Live for Thursday afternoon at 4, when people usually get home, say for 5, right at supper time, I guess.
4:35.
I'll do an update, but I can also do this, and can we put this on our website as well?
Sure.
For our pages?
So 5 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll do 5 o'clock on the Thursday.
Okay.
Any other comments or suggestions, Council, on how we can motivate our community to make comment? Okay, not hearing anything. I'll put this motion to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried, none opposed. Thank you, Gail, for the extra information. Okay, moving on to 11.6, physicians shortage. Moved by Councillor John Paroff, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Whereas council received correspondence from the town of South Bruce Peninsula requesting support and action at the provincial and federal levels with regard to the ongoing physician shortage in Ontario. And whereas physician shortage is also a pressing issue in Northern Ontario, which council recognized under resolution number 2022-042 dated February 9th, 2022. And council is in agreement with suggestions put forth by South Bruce Peninsula for the following: that the province of Ontario and the government of Canada recognize that there is a shortage of physicians, including specialists and general practitioners, that the provincial and federal governments take steps to provide support and subsidy to students entering medical school with the intention of practicing in Ontario, and particularly in underserviced rural and northern municipalities, that the province and the federal governments work with Canadian universities to increase the number of students accepted into medical school and residency programs, and that the province expedite the accreditation process for foreign-trained medical practitioners. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby support the town of South Bruce Peninsula's request that the provincial and federal governments address the ongoing physician shortage in Ontario. Be it further resolved that this resolution be forwarded to the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Jean-Yves Duclos, Federal Minister of Health, the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, the Honourable Stephen Leachy, Minister of Education, Minister of Education, the College of Physicians and Surgeons, Carol Hughes, MP Algoma Manitoulin Kapuskasing, Michael Mantha, MPP Algoma Manitoulin, the Ontario Medical Association, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, and the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, with a copy to the town of South Bruce Peninsula. Any comment on the motion? Okay, there being none, I put that to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. Item 11.7 is a request for support for Healthcare Connect. If I can get a Healthcare Connect system. Moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor Dragos Stefanik. Whereas council received correspondence from the Municipal of Brighton with regard to the gap in healthcare that military personnel face when being discharged from duty, and whereas military personnel receive health care through the Canadian Armed Forces, which ceases after the date of military release, however, are unable to register with Healthcare Connect until after their release date. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby support the Municipality of Brighton's request that Ontario government permit Canadian Forces members to register for coverage in the Healthcare Connect system in advance of their release date, and provided they have that date secured. Be it further resolved that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, with a copy forwarded to the Municipality of Brighton. Do we want to include Honourable Doug Ford, the actual name, in that resolution, just to be consistent? Okay, so there'll be that amendment to the motion, Council, for consistency. Any comment on that motion or clarification? There being none, I put it to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. Okay, I'm going to break right now for 5 minutes. So if we can, or 6 minutes, if we can convene back at 7:35, please, Council. Okay, council, we're on to information only section. Moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor
I'll second it.
Peter Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby acknowledge receipt of the correspondence information only package attached to the agenda of the regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. Is there any question or comment on the information only package or things that council would like to highlight in there before moving on? Go ahead, Councillor Paroff. John?
Yes, I want to bring your attention to 12.2. And I would like to congratulate our mayor for being appointed vice chair of the housing affordability task. I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, John. Actually, I'll comment to that right now is we have our first meeting tomorrow afternoon. So I'll be meeting the chair and some groups. We'll be having our first kickoff meeting. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Councillor Paroff. I want to bring attention to 12.14 about the Ontario One Call Locates response time. We have been able to confirm a date, I believe it's Thursday, October 6th, with Michael Mantha's office to discuss furthering this item. And I believe that's all my concerns. If there's nothing further, we'll carry on. And I put that motion to receive to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Okay, moving on to 13.1 is the Northern Policy Institute Northern Directions Conference. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Drago-Stefanik, second by Councillor John Paroff. Whereas the township has been invited by the Rural Development Network, RDN, to co-author and co-present an abstract on the rural revitalization project that the two parties are partnering on at the upcoming Northern Directions Conference. And whereas it is in the township's best interest to support our project partner by raising awareness about and promoting this project, as well as furthering the revitalization efforts in our community. And whereas Mayor Ford has offered to participate in this conference and this conference has co-authored an abstract entitled Adopting a Holistic Approach to Municipal Planning with Deanne Binard, CEO of RDN, and has the required funds remaining in her travel budget. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby support Mayor Ford's attendance at and participation in the 2022 Northern Policy Institute, NPI, Northern Directions Conference to be held Wednesday, November 16th, Friday, November 18th, 2022 in North Bay, Ontario. Any comments or questions on the motion? I have to give a shout out to Deanne. She was the one that saw this, approached us, sent an email out to myself and Gail and Eileen and talked about this, and she has the funding to be able to go herself. So we were able to partner, and I do think when you look at the agenda of the conference and who should be attending, I think it'll be imperative that we are there. And I am looking forward to it. I thought it's interesting to go back to when we had our first term, 4 years ago. I don't know if you remembered, I co-authored a paper with Norm Sandberg and we went to the Nuclear Societies thing. So anyway, I am looking forward to representing Hornepayne. So I thank Deanne for finding the opportunity and inviting us. So it'll be a good partnership. And if there's no questions, I can put that motion to a vote. Okay, there being no questions, those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. None opposed. Thank you, Council. 14 is new and other business, 14.1, so I'll hand this over to Gail.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. So the Community Control Group met today for the first time since, I would say mid-June or the end of June. And things are pretty much status quo in the area. Omicron is still the dominant strain that's in our region. They haven't seen any of the new strains yet. It is traveling fairly regularly and quickly from person to person, but thankfully the symptoms don't seem to be, for most people at least, don't seem to be life-threatening or too long right now. So we do have that. The health unit still is promoting safety measures, masking where you need to, although those formal things have been removed except for in congregate setting areas. Distance when you have to. They're still encouraging vaccines. The bivalent vaccine, which is targeted to the Omicron strain and the previous strains, is now available for 70 plus and for immunocompromised. There's a clinic here on Thursday from 1 to 6 at the Legion. There's another clinic on the 26th, I think she said, again at the Legion, and then that bivalent vaccine will be available to anybody who wants it. So they're still encouraging the same messaging. We've decided at the meeting today that was our last meeting today, unless something strikes back up and we need to start a new session, and hopefully that's not going to happen. But everybody was of the same mind that our time could probably now be put to better use, just because the immediate threat is over. We hope, anyways. So again, just to thank everybody who participated in those meetings. We had almost weekly meetings for probably a year and a half. Porcupine Health Unit, OPP, Algoma paramedics, township staff, hospital staff, teachers or principals, some of the doctors sometimes too. So we had a lot of support. We have, built some new partnerships and strengthened other ones, as was mentioned at the meeting today. I'm going to be sending letters of thanks out to all of those people who participated. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. They're still having outbreaks at various places in the region at the congregate settings. Those are the only ones they're keeping track of now. So that would be, hospitals, seniors residences, treatment centers, etc. I can't think of anything else particularly that I need to report back on that. So Mayor Fort, did you have anything to add?
Just that I'll formally be lifting the emergency off of our community as soon as I fill out the paperwork. So I could sign it tonight when I'm in there, Gail, and then that way it comes off as our community control group if you'd like.
You could, but the paperwork won't be ready tonight because Jen can't hear any of the movers and seconders or anything. Usually she does that as we go along. So it's up to you. I mean, you can certainly do it tonight or tomorrow, whatever works for you.
Yeah, well, maybe what we'll do is we'll leave it council for Thursday, and then I can tell our community on the live as well that it'll be lifted.
Perfect.
And that was support of the whole committee too. So, okay, thank you for the update, Gail, and hopefully that closes a time in Hornepayne's history that we don't have to ever repeat in many generations to come. 14.2 is the inaugural meeting of council. If I get a mover and a seconder, and then we'll have a discussion. Moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor Drago Stefanik. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby reschedule the time of the inaugural meeting of the incoming council from 6 p.m. on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 to a certain time due to a scheduling conflict. So just so that you know, this arises from the conference that I will be attending, the NPI conference. I have to be in North Bay the next day, and that gives me no time to travel from Tuesday night to the next day, but I do need to be our mayor before I go. So there some legalities have to be followed. And we had a few times to suggest on the Tuesday earlier in the morning. I can't recall, Gail, what the first suggestions were. Did we go with early morning first?
I think we were thinking 9 or 10, and if that didn't work, go to lunch hour if that works for people who do have day jobs.
Okay, so that's what we're thinking. This would be a fairly short meeting in the sense that we would do our inaugural meeting, all do our oaths, and also we would be appointing our committee chairs at that meeting. And I believe that would be all the housekeeping items at that.
Yeah, we could keep it to that for sure. I think that's enough for first meeting.
Okay, so I looked to council at what would be the best time, and we can't do it on the 14th. Just so you know. Would 9 a.m. work for people? Or even, could we do, I don't even know if it would be better to do earlier for some folks. I'm not sure. Peter,
9
do you have
a.m.
availability? Sorry,
Yeah,
go
9
ahead.
a.m. would work okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. What day was that, Madam Mayor?
Tuesday, November the 15th. So
Yeah,
it's our
okay, 9 a.m. Yeah,
new council.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Councillor Kistmaker Belinda. Okay, she's giving a thumbs up. Councillor Haroff, I'm sorry, you will not be here. I am sad to see you go, John. Okay. Councillor Drago Stefanik? 9, okay. Okay, we'll change the time to 9 a.m. And are we going to do a photo at that time? So come dress for a photo? Okay, come dress for a photo as well, Councillor, at 9 a.m.
It actually would be nice if you could coordinate somehow.
Coordinate.
We'll get back to you on that because it looks like that's the picture that we can use for 4 years, right? As a
Okay,
representation, it go on our website. It can go on to, you know, documents or whatever we need it for. So it would be nice if we could, you know.
airbrush and make us skinnier?
Well, if you find out how to do that, let me know.
Okay, if you let us know, coordinate what would be best, okay. I'm game. Okay, so I put that motion for 9 a.m. to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Okay, 14.3 is the motorized vehicles at Cedar Point. So at our town hall meeting, this was brought up by a concerned resident about motorized vehicles at Cedar Point on the Cedar Point Lake itself and on the land around the park. And as Drago said at the meeting, there was a bylaw that was dug out and found, and it was distributed after our meeting. So this discussion is for direction of where council would like to go, and I'll hand it off to Gail if you'd like to speak to anything, Gail, first before any discussion.
Just to say that we did get a couple of other comments in from 1 or 2 residents following the meeting who had been at the town hall meeting, but said, yes, that's happened to me as well. It's a safety concern. So, you know, could you please look at it? And then again, that's something we did bring up to the OPP, mentioned for them today to patrol a little bit out there. And actually, not that they particularly need this for that area, but they are training. Some of the officers are having ATV training. So they will be going out, excuse me, on the trails as well at some point. And I think that was all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Okay, so I leave it up to, you see the existing bylaw here. Is there items that we'd like to add to the bylaw, revisit? Do we want?
I would like to ask some.
You would like to add some? Go ahead, Peter.
I just put in that somebody mentioned to me, I didn't go out there today to check, but there's been people camping out there. And that kind of concerns me too about campers being set out there because of the garbage issues and possibly septic systems and whatnot.
Okay. And then two, this bylaw doesn't really directly say on the motorized vehicles on the lake itself, on the water. And that was one of the concerns brought up, was about the, I think it was sea-doos that were on the water.
Nothing I'd like to mention too, Madam Mayor, is there was in the proposal, a couple of proposals were the use of barricades to prevent ATVs and whatnot, motorcycles from going onto the lakeside, which I fully agree with them not going there. But barrier, any kind of a barrier put in place, I believe would lead to trouble possibly in the winter, because kids will be kids and the snow machines and whatnot. I'm just think we're just inviting an accident to happen.
So do we want staff to take some time and look at what other communities do with their parks in this and bring a report back with maybe the first proposed bylaw? And then we can look at it further. We have this bylaw allows us to put up signs. We already have, because the fee structure, I know that was one question I had. Would this be part of our user fee structure? Is there any way it would be fit into that at some point?
Yeah, if it's not, Melissa's been dealing mostly with that consultant, but if it's not in there, we can certainly ask them to, you know, look at those types of things, fines and whatnot. And she may have already done that, but if she hasn't, we will.
Okay. And Gail, do you need a motion to bring back a report on this, or no?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. And is there any other information that you would like from council right now that you need to move forward? Councillor Stefanik, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, through Mayor, there should also be a bylaw in roughly same area of the years that there is no camping in Cedar Point Park, and that's a fact as well. It's 86, 87, 88, because that was an issue way back when as well. People bring their campers, or they're going through the municipality, and they would camp out and leave a major mess, as Councilor Peter Kistemaker said. So I'm certain there's also a bylaw regarding that as well.
Yeah, I remember that as well. Because there used to be signage up out there for no camping. Okay, council, is there any further comments or concerns that you have about this issue that we'd like the staff to address and look at possibly during their research? Okay. And so far, Gail, we've posted across the community this information. And were we able to get some signs put out there?
No, we didn't do anything yet. We weren't sure exactly if you wanted to include motorized sports or I mean, sorry, not motorized, but water sports, or just if we're going to do some research, we can get signs up for this in the meantime. And then, well, by that time it'll be winter, I guess. Then this motorized for water would go in the spring then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem getting signage as long as we can continue using it for whatever, like if the motorized vehicle part, maybe if we leave it broad and just motorized vehicles not allowed. Yeah.
Okay.
Did that suffice, council?
That sounds good.
Yeah, oh, thank you, Peter. Councillor Stefanik, go ahead.
Yeah, just an addition, I would say no motorized craft in the Cedar Point Lake. Craft involves everything, but I would not want to discourage kayaking or anything that's fitness that provides fitness for the families and the like. So, but anything motorized craft, no way.
Okay, I think that's it. Do you have enough direction with that, Gail?
Yes, we do. Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to 14.4 is council committee updates. And we'll go around the table. Councillor John Peroff.
No, I don't have any real updates at this time.
Okay, the last we spoke, I think you did mention at the town hall that you had hired staff at the HHC.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, that forgot. At the HHC, we did hire our new administrator. She's only been there a few days now, but seems to be doing very well. We had one HHC meeting with her in attendance, and we're going to be quite happy, and I think it's good for our community.
Okay, well, if you have an opportunity either late Thursday afternoon or Friday, I would love to meet the new person.
We could do that. Send me a
Okay.
message. We could do that.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, if that's everything. Councillor Belinda Kistemaker.
The only thing I have to add is the Nagogami Forest Local Citizens Committee met and last week, and they're having an open house at the Legion on October the 4th at 6 o'clock, and it would be good if people participated.
Okay, what's the open house for? Is it the slash burning or something?
No, it's on a variety of things. They usually have a meeting once a year or whatever, just to let people know what's going on, show their maps, that kind of thing. Show what they're up to.
Okay, thank you, Belinda. Councillor Peter Kistemaker, go ahead.
Well, I have nothing to add at this time, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Drago Stefanik, go ahead.
3 items. Porcupine Health Unit meetings are advancing, progressing, the same as the Hornepayne Public Library. And the other item number 3, I'm not sure how long iPads last, but mine has been giving me much difficulty since I've been using since Friday when all the information it's blanking out. It becomes black, and I've been doing about 20 times during this meeting. I was looking at the, so I'm not sure what the lifespan of this iPad is. It's concerning to me because it was a nuisance trying to go back and forth and follow the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a question on that, Gail. I'm not sure when we implemented using digital mediums, I'm not sure if we actually passed a policy on it so that if people run into problems, they know exactly what to do, like where to go or who to bring it to.
I don't remember if that's in there. I think it was more about an ownership thing and you know, what's on there and what's not on there. But I'm just thinking they must be going on 5 years old. So that's probably well, it was before this term of council that we bought them. So that's probably going on time for this is going to start happening, I would think.
Okay, so then we're definitely gonna have to put that into a cyclical funding.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that partial replacement, at least I think in the budget. So we'll jot that down.
Okay. And is there one in the meantime that Councillor Stefanik can use if his totally bottoms out here? Councillor Perroff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Honestly, I haven't used my iPad, so I could bring it in. It could be available if you guys want to do whatever you have to. I don't use it.
Oh, perfect. That's appreciated, John. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay, so Councillor Stefanik will try and get you to ensure that you have the equipment that you need and work with you on that. Okay, if that's all the updates, we can move on to the only updates I have. Sorry, we did meet with the OPP today, which I thought it was a great meeting. Eileen got to meet Kevin, and we got a tour of the OPP station and the facility up there, and very hopeful meeting. It was so there are more recruits coming in October. So, which was exciting for me. We had originally had a we had a 5-member team here in Hornepayne, but now it's a 6-member team. So that's good news for us. And they're working at following more recruits. One thing that was a little bit disheartening was, I believe Kevin had mentioned, and it's Kevin Fellinger, sorry, and that they had, I believe it was 135 slots at the academy, and it was 102 graduated. They didn't.
105 graduated, or 105 were available, he said.
Yes.
And then 85 were snapped up by municipal police forces, basically in Southern Ontario.
Right, but there is room at the college for more people to actually go. They're having a hard time filling the college spot. So even at that level of recruitment, they're having a hard time. So, but overall, it was a really good meeting. And I did attend the last CCG meeting, and I have to reiterate what Gail said about creating connections and strengthening connections even within our own community with the township and the Porcupine Health Unit. I feel like the connections and the bonds there are greater than they were ever in the past. And I have to say thank you to Councillor Stefanik for sitting on the PHU board and being a voice for our community and the region. I think it helped us greatly through that pandemic. So it was sad to see it end today, but at the same time, I'm glad it's done. So it was a bittersweet meeting. And you know, I think back over the course of 2 years and some bit meeting, we went through some really difficult meetings. There was some really difficult times and scary decision making and worrying about our community, and especially some of our elderly and our very, very young at the time, and all those transitions we went through in the pandemic. So I'm sure there was across that table, there was many sleepless nights for sure. And the last item that I did mention earlier was tomorrow I do have that first housing vice chair meeting, so I'm looking forward to that. I will do the Facebook Live on Thursday, and next week I am away at Good Roads. And in the report about the Blue Jays, that was in your report, correct, Gail? Yes. So about the funding going forward for our ball field and applying to that foundation for the Blue Jays Foundation. So it just so happens that directors from Ontario Good Roads, the first time we've decided it's a women's night going on Friday, and I actually got a jersey. I should have grabbed it to show everybody. It's a Blue Jays jersey, but it says Mayor Fort with 28, the year we became Hornepayne, on the back. So we'll take some photos. And we were talking about maybe at the October 4th meeting, we'll talk a little bit about getting a photo opportunity for our community to support our application for that foundation and those dollars. So I want to applaud the staff on being on top of that and seeing like when it opened and getting the information for that. So I'm hopeful we'll be successful. And if council has any ideas, check out the Blue Jays Foundation. The information's on the site of who was successful the last time, and you can see the maps from past years. Northern Ontario is blank. There's no little Blue Jay album head there on Northern Ontario, so we need to put it right at the center of Ontario. So so I do look forward to that. So I will be away next week, but I will be attending on the 28th. There is a hospital meeting, so a hospital board meeting. I will attend that virtually. And oh, and unfortunately, a big shout out to our community for the Terry Fox run that happened this past Sunday. I said unfortunately this is I think the first one I've missed in our community since back when Naomi Sirwa started them and then handed off to Amanda Drury. I had to go and see my son in Hearst and assist over there. Everything was fine, but I want to congratulate our community for all the support, and the pictures looked great, and it was kind of sad to not be there, but I think it was all a good time, and I hear the bake sale went well. Go ahead, Gail.
I meant to add on to our report earlier. Shanna and I were checking the site today, our town trotter site, and we actually raised $1,150 for our team. So thank you to everybody who donated. I'm not sure who everybody was, but we really appreciate the support.
Oh, great. Good, good. Yes. I'm looking forward to seeing the final tally for our community, but so yeah, so it was a great weekend this weekend, and I want to give a shout out that there's a chili contest going on at the Legion on October 1st. So make a pot of chili and go try your wares out. I hope I can attend. I'll be a taster. And that's it. That's all I have for upcoming stuff for me. Okay, so let's carry on. Unless there's questions, sorry, I'm moving pretty quick here. No questions. Let's carry on. Okay, bylaws. We have a bylaw for Joint Compliance Audit Committee. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor John Paroff, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that bylaw 1954 being a bylaw to appoint a joint compliance audit committee for the 2022-2026 council term be hereby read a first time and second time, considered read a third time, and finally passed. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Oh, it came up here. I do have one question, Gail. When I was reading through the bylaw, I know it's something that we need to have, but in the bylaw, it states about staffing and funding on page 3, I believe. It's item number 9. And it talks about the municipality requiring the services would have to pay for the mileage and the expenses incurred in that. And is there any way through this bylaw that virtual meetings could be used?
Yes, that's going, sorry, there's a training one by, that's going to be the first choice, and that I'm sure we would be able to do that. I think that was just there just in case to have that covered, but yeah.
Okay, that was my only question on it. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll put that bylaw to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried, none opposed. Okay, bylaw number 1955, procedural bylaw, moved by Councillor Drago-Stefanik, second by Councillor John Paroff. Be it resolved that bylaw 1956 being a bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceeding of meetings of council and the conduct of members, staff, and attendees at council meetings, so hereby read a first and second time, be considered read a third time, and finally passed. Any comments on the bylaw? Councillor Drago-Stefanik, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to commend Jennifer. I think she did a solid work on this procedural bylaw. Thank you.
Definitely, agreed. Go ahead, Gail.
Same, I just wanted to say that's a huge, huge undertaking, and it was pretty much totally restructured, which is a tremendous amount of work. And what is it, 40 pages or whatever it is, that's a lot of stuff to make sure that you've you get in there. So yes, very good job, Jen. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. I do have a couple of working questions here. In item 9.3, commencement of the meeting, are we, so I'm going to write my note, read my note. We will not need a mover and a seconder to call the meeting to order. It'll happen as soon as I call it, or the chair calls the meeting to order after there's quorum.
No, it will have to be called to order.
Okay, because it's 9.3.1. It just says as soon as there is a quorum after the scheduled commencement time, the chair shall call the members to order. I was thinking, is there a motion still?
Yep.
I'm just wondering for next meeting. There is? Okay.
Yep, yep.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And the other one was within the minutes were, I remember discussing this, asking Jen about this, is how do other members of the public at their request get their name to be put on the minutes? And I say this, council, is for, especially if people are going to run an election and they start attending meetings ahead of time, it's nice to have that recorded ahead of time, or for other documents. I'm not sure why they would want to be recorded, but.
So I remember she had mentioned that to me, but do you know which section it's in?
Yeah, it's 12.3 and it's item B in 12.3. And it just says the names of the chairs, members, and staff and others at their request. I'm just wondering, how do they make that request?
Okay, so you just want to say they could request for the clerk to record their name, something like
Yeah,
that?
like, yeah, to know who, like, who do
Yep.
they tell?
Yeah, I would say the clerk.
The
We
clerk?
could add that, we could add that in.
Okay, if council's good with that change. And the only other one that I had was just above that 11.7.1. It talks about deadline for submissions of materials, and it's saying that the date after a statutory holiday, the deadline would be the first day after that. Does that give you enough time? Like, when I was reading it, I was thinking, should it not be the business day before?
I think it's okay because we're already adding 2 days to what we already have now. So it would still be
Okay.
one more day than what we have now. So I think it's fine.
Okay, perfect, right on. Well, awesome job. And if there's no other questions or comments on the bylaw, so just with that one addition of to notify the clerk to be added to the minutes, that would be the change. Okay, I put that to a vote. Council, those in favor?
Aye.
And that is passed. None opposed. Okay, bylaw number. I think we got a mistake on our numbers. I read 1956 on the bylaw procedure. It should be 1955. I apologize. I was reading out of the notes just for that. Just so.
Yep, you're right. We'll make that correction. Thank
Okay.
you for pointing that out.
Sorry, I just only got it because I said it.
Oh, that's good. We've all read it and we didn't get it, so.
Okay, so now we are on bylaw number 1956 to repeal the bylaw number 985, the taxi. Moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor Peter Kistemaker. Is that you?
Sure.
Okay. Be it resolved that bylaw number 1956, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 985, taxi cab bylaw, be hereby read a first and second time and considered read a third time and finally passed. I think we discussed this at length already. Is there any further comments? So being none, I put that to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
That is carried, none opposed. Okay, 16.4 is bylaw number 1957. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Drago-Stefanik, second by Councillor John Peroff. Be it resolved that bylaw number 1957 being a bylaw to enter a funding agreement between the Corporation, the Township of Hornepayne, and the Community Foundations of Canada regarding the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative for the tablet lending library to keep the vulnerable connected, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed. Any comments or on the bylaw? Questions on the bylaw? Okay, I do have one question. Gail, do we know how many tablets this is actually providing? It shows $11,000, but it didn't say. I was just curious.
I'd have to look at the application. I'm not sure offhand.
But that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Applaud Darnell and your team and her team. Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Okay, council, we're on to 17 motions and notice of motions. There are none, so 18 is the closed session, and we'll be moving into a closed. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor John Peroff, second by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting at 8:15 p.m. be closed to the public in order to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, pursuant to section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001. Those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried, none opposed. So you have your link and I'll meet you there. Okay, a mover and a seconder to reopen our open council, moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor Drago Stefanik. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby return to open council at 8:55 p.m. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried, none opposed. So we went into a closed session of council to discuss two items. Staffing issues, community, I'm trying to get up to my notes, and a possible complaint. And from that, we do have one motion to floor, and I will need a mover and a seconder, and the staff member will read that out for us. So if I can get a move by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor
I'll second it.
Peter Kistemaker. And if we could get that read out, please.
Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby authorize the CAO clerk to hire a temporary general equipment operator for the Public Works Department according to the conditions laid out during the closed session of council.
Okay. And do we put that to a vote? Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried, none opposed. Okay, so, and there's no further business coming out from the closed session at this time. And we move on to 20.1, or 20, which is our adjournment. 20.1 is our confirmatory bylaw. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Belinda Kistemaker, second by Councillor John Paroff. Be it resolved that bylaw number 1958, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at their regular meeting held on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed. Those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, none opposed. And 20.2 is the adjournment, moved by Councillor.
I'll move it.
Second by Councillor Peter Kistemaker. Be it resolved that council does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022 at 8:57 p.m. In favor?
Aye.
And that's carried, none opposed. Okay, thank you, council. I hope everyone
Good
has
night,
a good
everyone.